Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and hi. Today we will conduct our presentation in how do bilingual speakers navigate code switching to express identity and group membership in multicultural societies. So, before we go further into the analysis, let me introduce you to my group members. I am Nur Kaisatu Izani Badina Razalif, matrix number 1251224. Now, moving on into the introduction. Code switching or code crossing between one language to another become very common among speakers nowadays. But before that, what is code switching? Code switching is the practice of alternating between two languages or more into one. Dialects or communication style depending on social context or audience. While it seems normal to everyone to code switching, the marginalized communities use code switching almost all the time just to match their way of speaking with the dominant social norms within a certain professional or educational context. There are several distinct types and manifestations of code switching. Number 1, linguistic and vocal code switching. Number 2, identity and behavioral code switching. Based on all this information, the researcher will decide to do a research about this topic.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and hello. My name is Nurul Syahida Atira binti Muhammad Bakir, matrix number 1251367. So moving on to research question. Our first research question asks, how do bilingual speakers use code switching in their everyday conversation? And the next one is, what social and contextual factors influence when and how bilingual speakers mix languages?
There are two objectives for this research. The first one is to identify the patterns of code switching used among bilingual speakers in a multicultural society. The second one is to explore the social factors that influence bilingual speakers' language choices.
Now let's move on to the next section, which discusses the research methods and instruments. So for this study, a quantitative research design was adopted using a survey method to collect data systematically. The data were collected electronically through Google Forms, which ensure efficient and accessible data collection. A total of 50 respondents were selected using a convenient sampling technique, and the survey link was distributed via WhatsApp. All responses were automatically recorded and prepared for further statistical analysis. Next, for the main research instruments used in this study was a structured questionnaire. The questionnaire was divided into several sections, with the first section focusing on the respondents' demographic information. The subsequent sections were designed to measure the core variables of the study using Likert scale items. Prior to distribution, the questionnaire was reviewed to ensure face validity, ensuring that the items were clear, relevant, and aligned with the research objective.
Okay, let's start with respondents' demographics. Let's start with Table 1 and Pie Chart 1, which show the age distribution of the respondents in this study. The participants were divided into three groups: 18 to 20 years old, 21 to 23 years old, and 24 years old and above. This helps us see which age ranges took part in the questionnaire and ensures that our sample includes people from different age groups, giving a clearer picture of the overall responses. Next, Table 2 and Pie Chart 2 present the racial distributions of the respondents. Participants came from a variety of racial backgrounds, including Malay, Chinese, Indian, Sabahan, Christians, Filipino, Bruneian Chinese, and Sabah Bumiputra. This diversity shows that the sample reflects a multi-racial population, allowing the study to capture insight and perspectives from different racial groups. Moving on, Table 3 and Pie Chart 3 show the gender distribution of the respondents. They were categorized as male and female, highlighting the gender composition of those who took part in the questionnaire. Understanding gender distribution is important because it ensures that both male and female perspectives are presented, making the study's findings more inclusive and balanced. Finally, Table 4 and Pie Chart 4 present the primary language distributions of the respondents. The participants reported speaking Malay, Mandarin, Tamil, English and Bisaya as their main languages. This information reflects the linguistic diversity of the sample, which can influence how respondents understand and interpret the questionnaire, ensuring that the study captures a wide range of perspectives.
So the first data analysis, code switching attitudes and patterns. Key points to be addressed here is code switching in certain situation, reason of code switching, fields when code switching, contextual and situational use of code switching, additional contextual and situational, lastly, advantage and disadvantage of code switching. Question number 1. Code switching in certain situation. As we can see in the pie chart, 64% of them saying yes to code switching in certain situation. This means that they do code switching and they do it for a reason. Next, 36% of them saying sometimes about code switching in certain situation. This perhaps indicate that the situation they might in affect the language they use. And lastly, what really interesting is none of them saying no about code switching in certain situation. This means that code switching is something that people would do and they do it on purpose. So for question number 2, as we can see in the pie chart, most respondent, 48% saying that the reason of the code switching is that it happened naturally without them thinking about it, or it just happened spontaneously. So next, 26% saying that the reason of the code switching is to match with someone. They're saying that the language they use at that time is connected to who they're talking to and how they want to interact with that person. Besides that, 24% saying that the reason they code switching is that they want to express their idea more precisely with their group discussion. And lastly, there are only 2% saying that the reason they code switching is to express or to clarify their identity or their culture background. From the information, we can say that code switching happen naturally or spontaneously, and also social-driven behavior rather than a deliberate expression of identity. So for question number 3, we asked the respondent about how they feel when they code switch. Half of them saying that they are comfortable when they code switch, meanwhile 48% saying that they are not comfortable when they code switch. Besides that, only 2% saying that they are natural when they code switch. This finding suggesting that when code switching is very common or very comfortable to most respondents, it's remain a discomfort to certain participants in this survey.
Next, I would like to present our findings on the contextual or situational use of code switching. Code switching refers to the practice of switching between two or more languages during communication, depending on the situation or the people involved. First, let's look at code switching among close friends when discussing casual topics. The pie chart shows that most respondents sometimes or often code switch with their close friends. This suggests that people feel comfortable mixing languages in informal and relaxed settings, especially with peers. Next, when speaking with family members, such as parents and siblings, the frequency of code switching is still relatively high. Many respondents reported doing it sometimes or often, while few said they rarely or never code switch. This indicates that code switching is also common in family interaction, although it may depend on age or language preference at home. Moving on to texting or online chatting, this chart shows a high percentage of respondents who always or often code switch. This suggests that digital communication encourages language mixing because it is fast, casual, and less formal. The next chart shows code switching when trying to keep a conversation private from others nearby. Here, many respondents reported sometimes or often code switching. This shows that language choice can be used strategically, especially to maintain privacy or exclude others from understanding the conversation. Finally, in formal settings such as classrooms or presentations, most respondents reported rarely or sometimes code switching. This indicates that formal environments require more language control and speakers tend to stick to one standard language. In conclusion, the results show that code switching is highly dependent on context. It is more common in informal situations, digital communication, and private conversation, but less frequent in informal settings.
Moving on into additional contextual and situational use of code switching, um, this is the personal feedback we got from our survey. Most respondents saying that they could switch while helping people to understand certain things. For example, when a person or a stranger or foreigner asking for a direction to go somewhere, they will switch to that language, to that foreigner language, just to make the foreigner feel more welcome and make the foreigner understand of the direction to go to that way. Furthermore, code switching are used when expressing one's feelings. This likely happen when a person want to express themselves more comfortably or only in a way that they could understand. Basically, like a monologue to themselves. For example, when they express themselves in other language while code switching, they feel more comfortable and less cringe while using their mother tongue. Meanwhile, code switching also used while in a group discussion, whereby when the topic in the group discussion need to use other language just because to make it more comfortable and more understandable to other members in the group. Now, we're going to look at advantage and disadvantage of code switching. Most respondents agree that the advantage of code switching is that code switching makes things easy for someone to communicate or to express one thought. This means that code switching make a person improve in their communication style, in their speaking skills, and also can build closeness while showing some respect, and also can build their grammar in that language. Meanwhile, for disadvantage of code switching, most respondents agree that people may think it's an offensive act or can lead to a problem because when a person or other people couldn't understand what is code switching, they couldn't understand the topic or the communication style very well and may think it as a offensive to them and can be misjudged by others too.
Hi, I'm Huda Muhammad Nordin, number matric is 1253279. So I will talk about as of why people decided to code switch between languages. So we did a study with 50 people and found that code switching is a very useful social tool. It helps us manage our relationship with others and show who we are. While things like who we are or who we talk to are important, we also want to focus on the personal and social reasons behind these choices. We found that code switching helps people express their thoughts and feelings more honestly. For many people, this is a natural way for them to connect with others and build a sense of community.
Moving on to social factors that influence code switching, this section focuses on situational and environmental triggers. So, based on the finding, the environment and setting do influence language choice, although the intensity varies. A total of 48 of respondents reported that their physical location has a strong influence on their language use, with 18% saying very much and 30% saying a lot. However, the largest group, which is 42%, indicated that the environment influenced them quite a bit, suggesting that while setting matters, it is not always the primary factor for code switching. In comparison, the topic of discussion shows a stronger influence. 56% of respondents stated that certain topics encourage language switching, with 22% using very much and 34% using a lot. This suggests that speakers often could switch to follow social norms or match the emotional tone of a situation. Next, we move to adjusting to the listener as factor influencing code switching. Code switching is often used as a social tool to help speakers communicate naturally and avoid communication breakdowns. One factor that influences code switching is the listener language ability. According to the survey results, 16% of respondents said that they always adjust their language switching based on the listener's fluency. 40% said they often make adjustment. 38% said they sometimes adjust their language use depending on the listener, and 6% said they rarely or never change their code switching habits based on the listener's fluency. These results show that speakers are highly sensitive to the other person's language abilities and make adjustments to help the conversation feel more comfortable and inclusive. Another factor is social mirroring, where speakers match the language choice of their conversation partner. The survey data shows that 32% of respondents say they always mirror their partner's language choice. 30% say they often do so. Other 30% say they sometimes mirror the other person, and the last 8% say they rarely or never mirror their conversation partner's language. This shows that many speakers adapt their language to match their interlocutor in order to maintain smooth communication. Social mirroring reduces social barriers, avoids confusion, and helps conversations feel more natural and connected.
Moving on to identity, expression, and language needs. To start with our findings on identity, the data shows that code switching is a major part of how people express themselves. 78% of our respondents use words from another language because they sound stronger, funnier, or even more creative than the original language that they are currently speaking. This isn't just about vocabulary. In fact, 54% of people feel like they are showing a different part of their personality when they switch languages. There is also a strong social side to this. About 76% of people use code switching to make it clear that they belong to a specific social group. This helps build a sense of community and culture between speakers. Finally, there is the practical need for clarity. 72% of our respondents switch because one language has the exact word or phrase they need to make their point clear. This shows that code switching is often a choice to make sure the listener understands them perfectly. Lastly, we want to look at the personal feedback from our survey. Many respondents describe code switching as a way to fit in so they do not feel like an outsider in a group. It also helps keep the conversation flowing smoothly. If someone forgets a word, they can just switch languages immediately instead of stopping the talk and make it awkward. Beyond that, code switching acts as a tool for emotional honesty. For example, one person shared that Malay language feels warmer for expressing personal feelings. We also found that people use it to show respect, such as using a Japanese phrase to honor a Japanese person's background. For many people, especially those raised in homes where many languages are spoken, this is an automatic habit that has been part of their identity since they were very young. It is simply how they connect with people around them.
From this research, we can conclude that code switching is a complex behavior shaped by a combination of personal identity and external context. By collecting data on age, race, and primary language, we can see that while individual backgrounds vary, the tendency to mirror one's linguistic environment remains a consistent pattern. This suggests that code switching is an important part of bilingual competence in a multicultural society.